Good morning and welcome to Acceleration Strategies for ICAPS IETs, part of the Transitions Academy webinar series. This series is brought to you in collaboration of ICSPS, the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support, and SIPDC, the Southern Illinois Professional Development Center, which is part of your ICCB Adult Ed Professional Development Network. All of you are muted at this point in listen-only mode. That doesn't mean that you can't ask questions of these fabulous presenters that you see on your screen. You can put questions in the question box, and we will try to get our presenters to address those as soon as possible or whenever it works in their presentation. So I do want to thank Matt Beasland and Chris McElroy from South Suburban College and Dan Deasy from College of DuPage. And since you came to hear them, let me turn it over to them and get this webinar started.
Good morning, everybody. This is Matt Beasland, and joining me today is Chris McElroy to present our presentation on accelerating your ICAPS program.
Good morning. So South Suburban College has been running the ICAPS program since March of 2014. We were originally part of the original Accelerating Opportunities Initiative. One of the good things about this was we were one of the first ICAPS programs, and we're also the first CHW class to ever run in the college. And that program is still running to this day. The program was designed with a team teaching model. We had 100% overlap. If you look at that picture there, that's our team teaching for our MIS program. Next slide.
All right, so our initial career pathways that we had at South Suburban College were the community health worker, emergency medical responder, and MIS. And with the MIS, we built in a IT bridge component. Now, why did we choose these pathways? Well, that was based on labor market information for EDR 4, Economic Development Region 4, like Cook County area and above. And those were seen as growing markets.
So originally, we did most of our marketing on students from our ABE, ASC classes and from people from the surrounding communities. Most of our advertisements for Bridge class would run alongside our advertisements for regular adult ed programs. So usually you would see a flyer for our regular adult ed programs, and then they'll have an additional flyer for our ICAPS classes. At the outset, we had students have a reading score of 9.0. But after table 11-12 hit, we had to drop that to 6.0 because there's just a true strenuous of a goal for students to make in order to get into the class. In order for students to get into the class, they had to have an interview with a transitions coach, aka me, to see if they're interested. A lot of students just want to go to college, which is fine, but as with ICAPS, we only have these certain pathways, so I have to make sure you're interested in that pathway to make sure you're going to be successful. You have to have good attendance too, because you're not going to your GED class. There's no way you're going to continue to go to GED and a college credit class, which is going to be much more strenuous. And so that again, combined with a desire to go to post-secondary, is the criteria for getting into the ICAPS program.
So how did this all work out? Yes, there were some challenges when it came to our ICAPS program. It was expensive to run. Initially, there was low student interest, especially in CHW. It was kind of, community health worker. What's that? And it's hard to explain. Like, well, it's kind of like a social worker, but for the healthcare field, and you go out and deal with the community, going door to door. So, that's an especially hard sell these days. Keeping our team teaching teams together, that was kind of difficult. Sometimes we would have a good match, sometimes we would have a bad match. It seems that whenever we got a good match of people, that they would end up having to separate for other reasons, which goes into that staff turnover that we had. We're constantly having new teachers, and this was a problem with our MIS class because the college faculty was very particular and did not like change. So that made that kind of a hard one to keep that going until he found someone that he really liked. The college level course.
And then the EMT class, one of our, the CHW class, the college poached one of our team teachers.
They did.
So
The college level coursework and expectation was difficult for adult education students. So sometimes, like as Chris was mentioning with our EMT class, that's an 8 credit hour class. So that one was for a single class, it required a lot of time outside of class to practice, and a lot of our students hadn't quite built up that skill set yet. And while the team teaching method and the structured learning assistance that we offered was all there to help, a lot of them still struggled in that area. And our students had a difficult time committing to adult education classes and college credit classes. Every time, and this still happens, by the time we hit midterm, we are losing students saying, oh, you know what, I really just need to concentrate on my GED, or, well, I'm just going to take this welding class. I really don't want to finish up the GED. Right now, I just need to concentrate on this class. So a lot of times they just want to commit to one or the other, even though they start off in both. And as we mentioned before, a full-time class schedule is hard for our students. Another challenge we had was that the college placement test, it changed from the Compass to the AccuPlacer, and there was all these continuous changing there. And then, of course, the new TABE 11-12 forced us to change our levels and reevaluate, which we are still continuously reevaluating because it's hard for some of our students ever to get to a 6th grade level on that as well.
So in order to find a solution, we had to evaluate all the offerings. So we started asking ourselves these questions. Are the offerings attractive to the students? We just can't blame the students for low enrollment. We have to sit and ask, what they want to be in this class and what classes are they enrolling in? How easy are the classes to get to? Do we have multiple sections for our GED component and for our ICAPS component? Are the students going to be successful in the class? What barriers are keeping them from being successful? And then what Matt mentioned earlier, is the program cost effective? Are we paying 2 teachers to teach 3 students? How long are these people going to stay on? And how expensive is it in terms of books and cost to our students? So what you want to do is make sure you find out what college careers your student body wants. Instead of just basing it on labor market data this time we decided to survey the students. A lot of times we think about a program or career pathway as something we would want to do, or we look at the data for the whole state and say, well, in our county, this is growing. But our students are separate from that. You have to zero down to what they want. So what we did was create a survey and ask our students what they wanted, what goals they were interested in after getting their GED and graduating. And always have your instructors and staff talk to the students about their goals, because you can mention it in orientation or at a big level, but if the people who talk to the students every day aren't constantly reminding the students, pushing the students to make sure they take their test and what they're going to do after they take their test, they're just going to sit there. You have to constantly be reinforcing that post-secondary is something the student can do and something the student should do.
All right, so we took this information when Chris surveyed our students, and we found out what it was that they wanted, what they told us they wanted. One, a welding ICAPS program. We launched that last August. It was doing well. We filled up half the class that first semester. And so that was something that the students said they wanted, was something hands-on like welding. A lot of our students have been telling us they want math-only classes because we were just doing general classes, all classes in one. And they're like, all I need is math. All I need is math. I mean, I would look at their progress on the GED and see that they don't just need math, but I want to be responsive to the students' needs. So we created these math-only classes. And I'm happy to report that by creating math-only classes, our enrollment did go up in the fall and even in the spring, until, of course, everything happened in the spring. But our initial enrollment was up. And one thing that we found out from our students is that many of them wanted to be CNAs. And I I hate to say this, but I had been fighting creating a CNA ICAPS program for years, for like 5 years. I was like, no, why would they want to go into a field like that when they could go into something? I've got the data right here for our economic development region and our local workforce investment board. They're never going to make more than $10 an hour being a CNA, but we could offer all these different things. Well, our CNA class filled pretty quick. And I didn't want to initially run it, but that's what our students wanted. So we offered that class and they enrolled and they were interested and they stuck around. So, you know, that I love it that it worked. Hate being wrong, but I'm glad that I was wrong. Adult education for high school graduates. This was something that we had launched, that we had tried. We're trying to be reactive, or I shouldn't say reactive, but we have so many students that come into our college that are below the college level. It's so far below that even the developmental faculty at the college don't know what to do with them. So we created this adult ed for high school graduates, and we allow these students to come in and participate in our ICAPS programs. Some of the classes that we had, like we had a math class for high school graduates that was on the adult ed side. That one, it did not work because the issues that they were having being successful in their developmental math classes at the college, they brought with them to our adult ed section, like the poor attendance and just leaving in the middle of class and undiagnosed disabilities, things like that, were still prevalent. And we were still dealing with those issues. However, it is something that we are going to continue to evaluate in the future. And what I'm hoping is, because we were getting the students on the back end, is I'd like to kind of get these students on the front end when it comes to adult ed for high school graduates. If they already place so low, like before they even get to the developmental sequence, have them come into adult ed. And last is the Barber College for ICAPS coming in fall of 2020, which is very exciting. It's my pet project, and I've encountered so many stumbles along the way of getting this college ready, but I think we're finally getting there. We're still waiting on ICCB approval for the certificate, but that's it was supposed to go to their March board, and as you know, that got postponed. So I'm hoping they approve it in April. But we have all the paperwork, and I finally got all the supplies ordered. Initially, when we were ordering supplies, it was coming from China and Italy, and as you know, that we can't get supplies from there right now. Nothing's coming out of there. So I found a place in Georgia that had all the supplies we need. So we are still on track to open for fall of 2020. And I'm really excited about that Barber College ICAPS program, because that is another offering that the students wanted to see. They actually wanted to see cosmetology, but we did not have the workforce data to support opening up a cosmetology program, because it's showing that people in cosmetology were not making, because let me go back. I'm using workforce equity grant funds to help support this, which means after the career sequence, the students would need to make 130% of the living wage, which cosmetology wouldn't have hit that, but barbering does. So that's where we're going with that.
Matt, there's a question.
Yes.
How is the CNA class paid for, since financial aid and WIOA won't cover it?
Very good question. So I'm using the Workforce Equity Initiative to pay for the CNA class. So that's that workforce equity grant that many of the colleges wrote for. And with the workforce equity grant, we're able to not only pay for their CNA, that gets them right into that pathway. Then they're going into the patient care technician route. So when they complete their CNA, they will be able to move on and go to phlebotomy. And after phlebotomy, they will get their ECT certificate, and then there'll be a patient care technician, which is a highly employable position. and a highly employable credential.
Thank you.
So we created 3 new pathways, and here's how we did it.
All right, so as I was talking earlier, we wrote for that workforce equity, and that is how we put the fun in funding. You get it? Braided funding, fun and funding. I love it.
It's hilarious.
So if you want to expand your offerings, you're going to have to do a little work. One thing is you want to make sure that adult education always has a seat at the table, and make sure you know what grants are going around. And remember this phrase, what about adult education? Always ask that when they're writing these grants. And, you know, whenever I ask it, they're like, oh, what do you want to add in there? And because I'm liked for grant writing at our college, that they usually listen because they throw a lot of work on me. And then another phrase is, if we made that in ICAPS class, I bet it would boost enrollment, which is, you know, very true for a lot of different fields. You know, having an ICAPS class could boost enrollment if it's one of those programs that your students seem to be interested in. And I know right now with enrollment low for a lot of programs, that a lot of your colleges would listen like, hey, we could get more students this way. And again, offer to share your grant writing experience with the rest of the college and be an active part in all grant initiatives. That's how you get people to buy in. And really, braided funding is the best way to expand your offerings. Like I used braided funding with this another grant initiative for our welding program. There was the Innovative Bridge and Transition Grant. By assisting in that grant program, not only were we able to upgrade our welding program at the college and be able to expand it to one of our satellite sites, but we also were able to make an ICAPS program out of it. And every year we write for the Perkins grant, and there's a certain part in it just for adult ed. Make sure you get your desires in that grant so you could use it. We have used the Perkins grant for adult ed programming for years now, just being able to support it that way, and it cuts down on the cost of these programs. Like I know when I was initially doing ICAPS, I'm like, this is so expensive and we're not getting many students out of it. I didn't feel so bad when I was using Perkins funds. I think that's like a mental disconnect for me. Like I feel like adult ed funds, they kind of belong to me, but Perkins funds, they're, you know, that's just extra money. When really they're all just college funds, college money. And then of course the Workforce Equity Initiative grant, that thing has been just awesome as far as serving our student population and helping people get access to education that didn't even have a chance before, even helping students that had somehow messed up their financial aid in the past. Like this workforce equity grant is giving them a second chance to come in and get their education. But with this workforce equity, it is making it so our ICAPS offerings could expand to that CNA. I see it auto-corrected to CAN. I hate that it autocorrects CNA to CAN all the time. So it should say CNA, and of course the Barber College.
So Matt, someone wants to know specifically, how are you using those Perkins funds for your ICAPS? You said you were doing that, but how specifically are you using them?
So each year we look at it differently. Like this year, I mean, for one, we always kind of make it being spent on the student. So because we're doing welding was our new program. We used it to purchase welding equipment for the students to use in the class. Now we don't give the students the equipment. We keep the equipment. The equipment belongs to the college, but this way they're not spending a bunch of money to attend welding classes. They get, you know, their masks, gloves, coats, everything except the shoes. You know, the shoes that's a big issue that we deal with. Chris could tell you all about that. But we get them everything they need except for steel-toed boots to go in that program. In the past, I've used it to purchase the student books so the students could attend their CHW classes or MIS classes. We do it for whatever fees are kind of associated with running an ICAPS class. I don't use it to pay for instruction. The college is really good. They'll pay for the credit side instructor, and I'll pay for our support instructor out of the adult ed funds. But any other fee we kind of put into that Perkins money, and whatever we can't put into Perkins, we use our South Suburban College Foundation. They have a good scholarship fund set up by one of my former vice presidents, Jane Stocker. She set up this scholarship fund for the students to use in order to help them transition into the college credit side.
And someone wants to know if you use Perkins funds to pay the salary for the adult ed support course salary.
No. Any other questions?
Nothing right now.
Great.
So just to circle back on welding, one of the ways we designed the program is that they can get 3 certificates within 3 semesters. We designed it so the first class, Introduction to Welding. After the Introduction to Welding, the next course semester, they could take 2 classes if they want to. Their gas metal arc welding or their shielded metal arc welding, or the tungsten arc, whichever falls correctly. They could get those 2 certificates the next semester. And then the following semester, you can get the 3rd certificate, and they'll be master welders at that point. And so after 3 semesters, they'll have the ability to make about $40,000 a year. And as welders, you know, that's one of those jobs where you could be on full time, or also you could just work different jobs. So you can kind of make your own schedule at certain points depending on where you're at and what you want to do. So it's a good program, and I like the fact that we can get it quickly, and the student can see exactly what job is leading to, as opposed to something like community health worker, where it's like, maybe you could work here or something. With welding, they know what the job is, and they know where they can go.
And one thing that really helped out the welding program is right when we were getting ready to launch this program, like a news article, it came out of nowhere, like welders making $140,000 a year. So, I mean, we had a lot of student interest just because this article came out and it was being shared all over social media. So that was kind of cool to help us out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some changes in adult ed. So in order to facilitate our adult ed students and our ICAPS students, adult ed kind of had to be restructured. So we had split our classes at the main campus for the first time, where we now have general studies and math. That way, if students really do just need math, they can concentrate on it. And, you know, students are able to pick. And if they wanted to, they could complete all of their classes in 2 days, or they could spread it out over 4 days. We were kind of trying to be as accommodating as possible for our students. And now our students, they're doing all their classes at a distance. So, I mean, that's exciting. But having the split classes benefited the ICAPS support class, because they could still remain within the normal adult education structure while participating in college credit classes.
So one of the things that we did was change how we recruit ICAPS. Whereas before we would go into our adult ed classes and the community, and while we still do that, one of the focus on the welding program was recruiting students who had just graduated from the GED program. They know the staff, they know the building, and it's easy for them to be like, hey, you've just completed this huge goal, or you're about to complete this huge goal. You should just transition smoothly into this program. So instead of waiting to someone pass 3 tests while they're in a ICAPS program, you have a student who's done with their GED or on their last test with their GED, and they can just do welding. And that way it's much easier on them, and they're much more motivated to finish. So to focus in, we moved everything into more of a career focus, as opposed to like CHW, which is more abstract. Our our CNA program and our welding program, all of the students already know what those jobs are. So it's not like you're explaining or trying to convince them, where you're just more leading them down a path. We made sure to ask them what they wanted to do. We wanted to ask them what they wanted to do, and that way that created buy-in from them. So they knew that they picked this program and they advocated for this program, so it's more likely they'll do it. Recruiting graduates is much easier than recruiting students at large from our GED program. That's what we realized, because especially since graduates are in there, they're still in contact with students who are currently in GED class, so they're our best recruiters going forward, because if they're doing well in their welding or the CNA program, they tell their friends who are still taking their GED classes that, hey, you need to get in this program. And we had full wraparound and support for all our ICAPS models. So if they needed we paid for the books, and like Matt said, we paid for all the welding gear except the shoes. The students had some pushback when they really wanted shoes, but we can't do that. So, but overall, if you're doing welding, you get the only cost to you is maybe $50 for some shoes. That's pretty good, considering that you get the use of all the material, the smocks, and the books.
Chris, do you provide childcare to your ICAPS students, is a question?
At this time, no, the college cannot provide childcare.
And how many ICAPS students do you have this fiscal year?
Let's see. We had 5 welding students to start, and in the CNA program, we had 8 or 9.
Now, mind you, in our CNA program, we were allotted 8 seats from the college. They still wanted to fill half with regular college credit students, and we had to beg for more seats, which has never happened in an ICAPS class for us ever, where we had to beg for more seats. So that was really kind of cool. And when it comes to the child care situation, we don't have on-campus childcare, but many of our students do qualify to receive childcare through DCFS, and there are local childcare centers that we hook them up with, that we make connections with, so the students are still able to get childcare, and it's just paid for out of somebody else's stream that's not associated with the college.
Thank you.
Chris, would you like to talk about
Can we
changes
skip a
in
slide?
Howard?
Oh,
Yeah,
so
this
we
is you.
Okay. So one of the things we had to do was change our marketing strategy. We had to do a more targeted and detailed marketing plan. So a lot of times is we print out 1,000 flyers and they go to community centers, libraries. The college puts our ads in the local paper, puts in the shopper, and we're on our website. But this time I decided to do something more targeted. I went through Deasy and went back 4 fiscal years and saw which neighborhoods in our community college district produced the most students. And me and 2 other people took all of our flyers, and I made a list of any barbershops, grocery stores, restaurants, fast food places, any place that would allow me to put flyers up. We split that list. We took the top 5 cities in our district, split that list amongst each of us, and went and flyed the whole neighborhood. And we also embraced social media as an advertisement tool. I introduced repeated and targeted advertisement on social media. I created different flyers and pictures, and I am part about, I would say, 25, 30 Facebook groups that are related to adult education, people looking for jobs in different towns in our districts, people looking for education help, people looking for just anything that could be related to stuff that our students need within our community. And I post all those advertisements in those groups, as well as reaching out to different other local media sources. I email usually any community outreach or social service in our area, and ask them if they would like me to come speak with them, or if they could put out their flyers, or if I could post their flyers on their Facebook page. And sometimes I get a response, sometimes I don't. I went up to the courthouse in our community and went to the probation office and talked to the lead probation officer and gave him our flyers. I created a big general purpose flyer that just has adult education available at South Suburban pretty much, but there's no date. And they allowed me to put that up in the probation office. So we're getting a lot more referrals from different places. Next slide. So this was our original flyers for ICAPS, both of these. Initially, when we created them, I thought they were good, but looking at them, there's too many words on it. There's just too much data, and no one's going to read it. And also on the flyer on the right, the white one, there's too many stock photos of it. The first top 3 are obviously stock photos, and the bottom 3 are our students. So when we created flyers this time, we wanted flyers that, first of all, could be used for both GED and for ICAPS. So next slide. So these are the flyers we came up with. Bright, colorful, and a lot less words. You could choose either general studies, math, welding / ICAPS, or IT bridge. Very direct. These are registration dates. Come at this time. Classes begin at this date. Any other detailed questions you want, you can ask at registration or email us or call us. This is just a good, at one glance, you know exactly what to do. And so for our ESO flyers, we did the same thing. And we made sure we have English and Spanish version. And I really enjoy the bright colors that come along with it as well. Next slide. I think there's a video. Can you click play? That still works. So yeah, so I created a little Facebook ad. You could create 30-second videos, and all you gotta do is pick your pictures in Zoom. It takes a while, but after you start doing it, you can kind of get used to it. And these are all pictures of our students, you know, people that they may know, people that are from the community. And I ran this, you know, a couple times, paid to have it run at different points throughout the semester, right before our registration periods. And I thought it was successful. We had a good turnout and a good up in enrollments for the fall and the spring.
So our successes. Our ICAPS enrollment is over 60% for the first time since before the budget impasse. So that's great. You know, we love seeing that increase, because there were semesters where we couldn't even run it because we had a lack of student interest. And students with math or reading deficiency can easily use our adult education classes. Now they could have a more targeted approach to earning that high school equivalency and transitioning into their career programs. And students are allowed to gradually adjust to college with the support of the adult education staff. I don't know about your guys' students, but our students, they love our staff. They get attached to them, and they really seek the advice of our staff to help them along, especially our transitions personnel. They really, you know, want their help. And recruiting our students that are graduates or are about to graduate, that eases their transition into college, especially when it's like, okay, we know you might not be able to qualify for financial aid right away, but we could help you get into class, these first couple classes, and then we'll be able to pay for that for you.
Matt, someone asked, is your enrollment up 60% or is it 60% of the credit class?
60% of the credit class. So I mean, if we're looking at up, if we started at 0 and we added 5 students, I mean, I guess that's 500%, or I guess that would be an infinite amount. But if we had 1, it would be up 500%. So I mean, that would just look ridiculous on this slide. But yeah, no, we're filling 60% of the college credit class. Like, that's just amazing. These were classes that at the college itself were not running due to low enrollment, and we made them run because of our students. Like, our welding classes at the college weren't going for whatever reason, whether it's exposure, you know, people didn't know about it or what, but as soon as our people got out there hitting the pavement trying to recruit people, we got those classes to go. And as you could see here on the right hand side, that is our students just working hard, scrambling things, or I should say grinding. They're grinding that metal. And there's our welding teacher in the middle there. I think that I was having a staff meeting or something talking about the new equipment. I have no idea what was going on there. And that top picture, that looks kind of cool. That guy looks like he's a ghost almost, like you could see through him. I don't know. Chris, what'd you do there?
No, like the way where the GIF is with the sparks is the welding lab, and through the glass on the other side is the classroom, as you see the desk. So I took the picture through the glass. That's why it looks weird.
All right.
So a lot of times in ICAPS, we bemoan the fact that, you know, the students aren't interested, or we can't get them to show up, or we don't have the staffing. But we need to innovate, because if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. So you have to change your approach, because the students are going to be the same. We have to change what we're doing in order to make this work. Any questions?
I think you've answered all the questions that we've had.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us on our presentation. Up next, we got Dan Deasy from COD. He has a great program over there. So I hope you guys listen and take great notes.
Thank you, everybody.
Matt, appreciate it. Can everyone see my screen? Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yes, we
Here in the
can.
bunker, so
Yeah.
we can. Okay, great. My name is Dan Deasy. I manage the adult education programs at College DuPage, and just going to share a couple of strategies that we've used to accelerate the process for our students to either complete a program or to transition on to some other opportunities and a stackable credential. So as Matt and Chris shared, there are multiple challenges with developing and implementing and sustaining an IET or ICAPS program. And I chose to look at a couple of those in relation to launching and implementing two new programs that we've put on the books over the last about year and a half. While some of the challenges, these are certainly not all of the challenges that I'm listing here, and a lot of them are interrelated, and one will impact the other. But I chose collaboration and academic partnership because, as you know, collaborating and forming partnerships can be a difficult process. And I also focused on student preparedness, and obviously how well a student is prepared to endeavor on a college track or pathway will affect retention, completion, all of those things. So I chose to focus on those two in relation to launching two new programs over the last year and a half. The first one I want to talk about is office technology. So, like Matt and Chris, we use employment data. We work with our workforce partners as well as internal units of the college academic programs to select programming that we feel will be beneficial and of interest to our students. So this year we launched an office technology IET program on the Office Technology Specialist as a certification. We were targeting advanced ELA learners, so anyone who's falling into the NRS high intermediate or advanced levels of ESL ELA. We did not have an existing bridge program for this IET. We do have bridge programs in place for ASC or GED students. They're transitioning to information technology, but we did not have anything for ELA students on the books at the time that we developed and implemented this in partnership with our OFSI folks at the college. Our recruitment was mainly from our core ELA programs, so we did open it up, obviously, to some of the other traditional channels of trying to recruit students. But as with most of our IET programs, the bulk of the students that participate enter our doors to register for our core programming. And in this case, it was those that were assessed and falling into the high intermediate advanced ELA courses. So most of our students came directly from that process. We assumed, and you'll see this really quickly, incorrectly, that some of the many of the digital literacy skills that we were providing that were embedded within our core ELA program coursework would prepare students for the transition into the OFTI program. We did use a screener, a very rudimentary screener, which we've changed. These are things that we learn and adapt to. We changed after our first cohort, but we do a career inventory interest from the students, and we also do a digital literacy screener, a very simplistic screener prior to allowing students to participate. And this was just a graphic of the model that shows how this program is laid out. So there's 2 tracks that are there's the ELA and resource time at the top, you could see, and then there's the academic courses, and those are intertwined. They register for those at the same time. So they're in an advanced ELA course. They are also participating in specific resource time with that faculty, and they're co-enrolled in the OFTI program, the Office Technology Professional Certificate Program. So we launched our first cohort this year, and immediately the faculty feedback was that our students really lacked typing skills. And they started also identifying specific digital literacy skills that our students were deficient in, and they felt that there was a lot of extra work we had to do within the course, but our academic partners felt that we really needed to potentially layer on some additional credit coursework for those students to be capable of handling the OFTI coursework successfully and completing it successfully. So we started looking at some options there as how that could work. This program essentially is between 2.5 semesters to 3 semesters, so it's already lengthy. We did not want to add additional courses to it. So what we came up with is we looked at something that we already had launched in FY19. So we piloted the IDEA program, which is the Integrated Digital English Acceleration Program, and that is out of Washington State. It was created at the state level using the Gates Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation monies. They got a grant. And the impetus of it was that during the budget crisis, the national budget crisis, they had to make a very difficult decision within the state, and they cut out their lower level support for their lower level ELA, ESL programs. And they acquired money to develop this program that would assist those that were without those services. So the initial focus was on very low level students, and it's grown from there. So right now within our institution, we target high beginning to high intermediate learners based on the NRS. IDEA combines English language instruction in context of college and career readiness. It really is designed to be meaningful for students and address life skills, job opportunities, career development, what's relevant to their lives. So the modules that were within this package that we started with really were relevant to the students, and that made a big difference. There is a flipped delivery model. So students are expected to do about a quarter to a third of the coursework on their own before getting to class, and they do that online. So they're using computers and developing those digital literacy skills that we thought would be necessary for a transition to a program like OFTI, the Office Technology. Prior to the start, we provide 1.5 to 2 weeks of digital literacy instruction. So we don't really bar students from participating in this program because they don't have the digital literacy skills that we feel are necessary to be successful off the bat. So we do some intensive training the first couple of weeks, focusing on digital literacy, focusing on how to interact with the program, learning at a distance, expectations, those types of things. We also provide access to technology.
There's a couple of questions about your digital literacy screener. What do you use to screen for that? And could you tell them more about that?
So we used a very rudimentary, it was an in-house screener that we developed. We've switched over to more formal. So again, this was a learning process. Since the initial cohort launched, we moved away from our home screener, and there are some pre-tests within the IDEA program, and we also use Northstar at this point as far as placement pre-testing. Fairly quick, but more rigor than we put into it. So our initial launch, we had a homegrown digital literacy assessment. Try to make it really quick, but we found that it was lacking. So does that answer the question?
I think so.
Okay. So they have access to a technology coach, not only during the first 2 weeks where we're trying to, take them through that digital literacy competency or to build those skills so that they can participate effectively. They have access to that technology coach throughout their IDEA program, so throughout the semester. And they have specific time scheduled with that technology coach weekly outside of the class time and their home time. So they get to meet with a technology coach at least once a week. Based on our pilot after the first year, we experienced very similar educational functioning level gains than Washington State had presented when they launched. So our students that were going through the IDEA program were experiencing EFL gains of up to 15% higher than traditional based on their level. So between 10 and 15% based on level. So that was just kind of an overview of that program that we had in existence all through FY19. And then we began to look at it. It's a modular program. A lot of, as I mentioned before, a lot of life skills, digital literacy, obviously, work-based preparedness components and academic readiness components. When we were trying to, and I swear this all ties in, but when we were trying to look at how to better meet the requirements for the IEL Civics grants, we felt that this was a great fit. So we had our in early FY20, we had our faculty looking at those competencies that are required, and then start developing the IDEA program implementing it as an IEL Civics program. So it has all the components: English language instruction, college career readiness, numeracy, and the transition component. So at this time, we also developed it to transition directly into the IET OFTI program. So the students are building those digital literacy skills that were lacking based on the academic faculty's identification of skills that were necessary and lacking in our students transitioning. And it also fits that IEL Civics model where, the core IEL Civics coursework needs to lead to transition to an IET or college level coursework. And so this all seemed to fit, and we began in FY20 after our first launch of that OFTI ICAPS program, IET program, to use the IDEA program as a feeder. So IDEA goes, like I had said, high beginning through high intermediate. So once they complete the high intermediate IDEA course, they move directly into the IET OFTI program. So then they're at the advanced ELA level, and they're eligible for that IET or ICAPS program. So it now serves as a feeder. Our second cohort, which we just began, was the first class that was a feeder from the IDEA program. And the feedback that we've received so far is that that we've addressed most of those skills that were lacking, and that is because they were working on those more consistently throughout their IDEA program. So we were able to, from the student's perspective, have them more prepared to successfully complete that OFTI IET ICAPS program. In addition, we were able to meet the expectations, of the IEL Civics funding that we received. So all of this seemed to gel. IDEA seemed to be a perfect fit. Clearly, we had to do a lot of work. The IDEA core modules and curriculum is customizable. So we were able to add specific components that were necessary for our program, but it seemed to be a great fit to check all those boxes. Helping students be better prepared to succeed at IET. It meets the requirements of the IEL Civics, and it's also, programmatically assisting us, achieve those educational functioning level requirements. So not a magic pill by any means, but it worked for us. So I would definitely recommend looking into that. So that's how we solved or tried to address the student preparedness issue on this one IET launch. So again, we're still within our second cohort, first year. I'll be able to report out more when they wrap up the this particular IET certification program. So any questions on that before we move on to the next IET?
None so far. None so far.
Okay. All right. So this is what this looks like. We've only, so it's the same structure of office technology, but we've added the feeder of the 0956 is our high beginning core ELA course, but it's within the IDEA structure. So this is what it currently looks like now. All right, a second example. So this deals with collaboration and academic partnership within our institution. We kind of had a dream scenario for an IET, potential IET being developed and implemented. So we were actually approached by our partners at our American Job Center and our Workforce Board. They were really interested in offering a Manufacturing Skills Standards Council certification course, Certified Production Technician. So they were working with our Department of Probation in our county and our county jail and our health department, and they wanted us to offer an IET program for ex-drug offenders that met certain qualifications. Very excited about this. Again, dream scenario for us. We all know how difficult it is to launch an IET program, to recruit students. In this scenario, all the students were being recruited by the health department, so we would have to do none of the recruitment. We had built-in employers that were interested in participating. We had 4 employers to start with, went up to 5 that signed on to offer paid internships for anyone who completed this program with the potential of hire. So dream scenario. Our partners were, as I said, the American Job Center, our Workforce Board, Adult Education at the College of DuPage, Department of Probation, Health Department, and the Department of Employment Security, and then, as I mentioned, 4 to 5 local employers. Our first cohort that they were recruiting for, we already had 9 students while we were developing this. So my first stop was to approach our manufacturing faculty. The college did and does have an existing MSSC credit certificate and approved curriculum. So we already had something on the books. I thought this would be a no-brainer. All the stars were in alignment. So I met with our full-time faculty to attempt to partner. They were aware of our, what an IET was, what ICAPS was. So they were certainly aware in previous conversations that we've had with them. It was very interesting. As soon as we started talking about MSSC, it was made clear to me that they were not going to participate. And I found that very odd, as that we had employers that were asking to hire students with this credential. So their first approach was employers don't want it, employers don't recognize it. We have our own certifications that we believe are more viable for students out in the job market. And when I explained that we had employers lined up and that this was something that's being asked for, the real reason why they weren't participating is when the MSSD, and I did not know any of this history, when it was put on the books at the college as a certification program, it from their perspective, it came more from the administration than the faculty. So that previous administration was gone, and they wanted nothing to do with it. They made it clear that they wouldn't provide any faculty for us, and they wouldn't participate in any way. But if we were interested in offering other programs, they would certainly be on board. So at that point, we had some obvious issues. We have partners requesting the programming. We have employers asking for trained MSSC certified job seekers, willing to pay them, and we had the money. Matt and Chris had mentioned braided funding, and we certainly tried to do that with every program that we offer. But in this situation, we had Title I, Title II, Community Block Grant, and Perkins. We bought some equipment and paid for books and materials, as well as that faculty support time. So we had the money. Again, everything was in alignment except the collaboration within our institution. So what we did is we did this on our own. So we went out and we got permission from our manufacturing faculty to offer this. We could not offer it at credit, but they would allow us to offer it and not object. So we designed a Model 2 non-credit certificate program. We hired faculty who had a background in manufacturing. There were very few, if you go to the MSSC website, there are very few people that are certified to teach this program within the state. So we paid for and put the manufacturing faculty through this training, and they became certified MSSC CPT instructors. So we then developed the program in partnership on the adult ed side, created the IET ICAPS program, and launched it. And we're currently on our third cohort. Excellent program, very motivated students. Most of them completed. I think we have each cohort is around 8 to 10 students, and I would say about we lose maybe 1 per cohort. So good retention. Employers, once they became certified, they received the MSSC certifications. There are 4 certifications: safety, manufacturing processes and production, quality practices and measurement, and maintenance awareness. Once they completed the program, they were hired permanently. The employers did not go through the paid internships. They just gave them jobs. So very successful. Most of the average salary, I believe, is around $17 an hour, and that was before, obviously before the COVID issue. But so for us, extremely successful. As I said, we were about to launch our 4th cohort. It's on hold at the moment, but and we're moving to ELA now too. We did launch an ELA cohort outside of this partnership because of the success of it in one of our communities of need. So after we had some successes, I went back to our full-time faculty and academic partners and presented the data. So we had the program completer data, outcomes data. I also presented a crosswalk of that certificate. Our goal at this point, they were not getting college credit, but how could we bring them back to the college once they got their feet under them at the job and continue on a manufacturing pathway? And that was the goal at the time, given my goal, given the situation at hand, where they weren't getting credit for it. So as I said, I presented the completer data, program outcomes data to the manufacturing faculty, talked about the employer satisfaction, that the students, there is a direct need for this. And I did a crosswalk of their certification, their MSSC certification, with additional certifications in a stackable credential, and pointed out that most of the course, all of the courses within the MSSC credit certificate were components of other certificate programs. So I basically said, if you can give us demonstrated competency, obviously the goal of that certificate program when it was put on the books was to get people certified in MSSC. I'm bringing folks to you that are certified. They've passed the test, they have their certification. If you grant us demonstrated competency, and in that process, this is the outline that I presented to them. The first certificate up there is the MSSC certificate. And then the highlighted courses beyond that are where those courses fit into other certificate programs. And my explanation to them is my goal is to get those students back into school. So if you can get them demonstrated competency, they'd have a leg up to start in those other certificate programs, more lengthy certificate programs at the college within that stackable credential. And ultimately they agreed to it. So now we're in discussions now where we can kind of take over using their faculty or faculty that they approve, take over the credit MFCC certificate so they are not using it. So our students can get credit directly versus through demonstrated comp. So those discussions are going on now. I guess the point of this was, based on things that are outside of our students' control, in this case, more of a political internal situation, students were not getting credit within our institution that I think was due to them. So I guess for us, going back to our faculty, proving things with data, showing, non-politically that this is a situation where this is a need we're trying to fill, we're all on the same team. They ultimately agreed to move forward with the demonstrated competency. They saw that, these students, and our goal was to get them back into their programs. So that was kind of a success for us. And again, we're success for the students, really, if they want to take advantage of it, but for our program and the collaborative process as well. So those were just two examples of how, we try, just like Matt and Chris, to overcome the multiple barriers that are in front of us, and how some tactics we could use to overcome them.
Dan, there's a couple of questions that relate back to the IDEA, your IDEA thing. Did you find that many students lacked access to computer and or internet? And if yes, did they use their smartphones?
They can use smartphones. We provided Chromebooks to all the students that go through our IDEA program. We provide a Chromebook to.
Okay. And did you have to?
So they're all using.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
Did you have to develop and have the curriculum approved for your IDEA?
We initially saw this as, we did a crosswalk with our existing curriculum. Our faculty did a crosswalk of the modules that were offered through IDEA, and the modules that we selected and used fit our pre-existing, pre-approved curriculum. So our thought was that this was just a method of delivery. The curriculum, we're meeting all the objectives of the approved curriculum. I think the last administrators meeting, or maybe the one before, we were told that since it's being delivered partially online, it has to be approved as a standing curriculum. So we are going through that process. I think some information was put out by ICCB about how that would look moving forward for next fiscal year. So we will do everything to meet that. Again, when we first implemented it, we had done that crosswalk, and we thought we did our due diligence as far as the course materials that we were selected were meeting all of the pre-approved course objectives and course outline. So we just saw this as a method of delivery, but we were informed that we had to go through the process to get it approved as a separate course, and we're going to do that in 2021.
Okay, and how did you recruit for this class versus your regular classes, like for the IDEA class?
So we made all of so we have 53 locations where we offer ELA, between 30 and 33. We decided to, because of the infrastructure and support, we decided to make our on-campus or main campus courses IDEA only. We did add some traditional courses, like late start courses for folks that were trying to get in and couldn't get into the IDEA, but still needed coursework at that location. But the bulk of our course delivery at our main campus in Glen Ellen is now IDEA. We gave people the choice, but we do sell it as, sell the value of it. We sell the more focus on the digital literacy skills. So do have a choice. They can go to another location or do a late start class, but they want to start at the Glen Ellen campus. at that particular time, they would have to select IDEA. So they are given choices, but most of them, most of our students select things based on location and time initially. But we do an orientation, we describe, because they are more time intensive as well, as far as the expectation of work outside of class. So they get a full picture of what they're getting involved with, and they get to make that choice there. But if they want to go to that location at that starting point, that's the only option we have for them.
Okay, and the other question is, what was this is related, I think, to your ex-offender. What was your success rate with the returning citizens or the ex-offenders?
For the success rate for completing the program?
Yes.
Completing the IET program? I would say around 90% of them would completed in our first 2 cohorts there. Give or take. I mean, our cohort size each time was between, I'd say, 8 and 10, and we typically had about 1 student drop.
Okay.
So it was pretty decent.
Okay. And
they did receive a lot of support.
Good. This question is across the board. Then I guess I will ask Matt and Chris also the same question. People are interested in what is the success rate of your students. So you just told us for the manufacturing, Dan. So for IDEA, what is the success rate for your students in that? And then Matt and Chris could come on and talk about the success rate of their students as well.
So for our OFTI program, we're on our 2nd cohort. We typically have around 10 students, again, around the same size, 8 to 10 students. I would say we normally get 2 people drop out before completion, so it's pretty decent. Again, small sizes, 8 to 10, and typically around 2 people drop out by the certification point within a year. IDEA itself, not the IET portion of it, but just the IDEA courses, we have a higher retention rate, even though it's more intensive than the traditional courses. I think it's around 10 or 15% higher than our traditional offerings. So,
okay,
and then the IDEA class.
Sorry. I'm sorry, Dan. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the IDEA class sizes are around 25. So the core IDEA programs are around 25 students.
Okay, and Matt and Chris, if you guys are still on, could you tell us about the success rate of your students?
Yeah, so with our CNA class, it was looking great. Everybody was still enrolled before we had to shut down clinicals due to COVID. But they were all still attending. We had launched that one in January, so it's hard to give any results based on that, but they were all still on track and are still on track. As soon as we reopen, we're going to be sending them through their clinicals. And when it comes to welding, I believe 100% made it through that first class. Chris, do you know how many transitioned? Or Chris, you're muted. I believe a majority of them transitioned into the next class. So, I mean, we had a pretty high success rate there. Now, keep in mind, like 1 person not transitioning to the next class would be like a 20% drop. So if we say, 80%, but I do believe, and I don't have the data right in front of me, it was either 3 or 4 of the original 5 students transitioned to the next class.
Yeah, Matt, Chris put in the chat box that it's 3 is the answer.
Oh, great. Perfect. So yeah, 60%, which is a D, but when you consider that that's 3 out of 5 that transition, that's pretty good, especially for our ICAPS class.
All right, so I think that's all the questions, and we want to thank all of our panelists today. Dan, Chris, and Matt, they've given us a ton of great information. And I also just want to mention to you that there are a couple of upcoming transitions related webinars that will be happening next Thursday, the 16th at 12:30. There'll be a support staff from a distance. And if you look in your chat box, I gave you the information of where to register and where the information is. Then also at the end of the month on the 30th will be a training partnerships for ICAPS IETs. part of the Transitions Academy webinar. That'll be at 10 o'clock. So if you go to the excellenceandadulted.com website, on the very front page, you will see the links to both of those webinars if you want to register. That is also, if you are not going to the Excellence in Adult Ed website, you definitely need to bookmark that, because that is where all the action is, telling you the resources that. And so I would put a plug in also this afternoon. The PDN is having an ESL tips and tricks webinar at 3 o'clock. It's not too late to register. That's also on that front page. So lots of great opportunities for you. And again, we're hearing thank you from a lot of the attendees, to all the presenters. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for not letting barriers prevent you from being able to serve your students. I think the common theme that we saw from all three of the people that were talking today is that wasn't that they didn't have issues or problems. They found a way to show people that, hey, we can do this, and we want to serve our students in the best possible way. So thank you all for continuing to do that, especially in these difficult times. And thank you to everyone who's joined us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.